Hello, this is Diane with Diane's Blue Hearts and Butterflies, and I am going to show how to make a special fold card. I saw this on the internet from Sam Calcott from the UK. She made one, it seemed to be larger and fit in a bigger envelope, and I wanted one that fit in a standard size envelope, so I resized everything to make them fit there. I wanted to go over some of the products that I used for these cards. The Best Dressed Designer Series paper has flower images on some of the sides of the paper, as well as the makeup and purses and shoes and everything on the other. And so I fell in love with that paper, so I'm using that. And then from that same suite, I'm also using the Dress to Impress bundle. This is available as a bundle where you can save 10% until July or June 3rd. When the new catalog comes out, then it will actually be unbundled, and it is carrying over. But to save 10% by buying both, you can do that, get that now. I'm also going to be using some of the elements from the dies for the Forever Blossoms bundle. I also used the stamped images, some of those for the leaves, and cut them out with the dies. On some of my cards for my class that I'm doing, I used this little branch piece as a background. You can see that here to kind of give it some dimension. I also, on some of the class members, are actually getting some of the layers that are done with this Christmas layers. There's kind of a flowery and then a branch type thing. So I tried to give a little bit of variety, and this one will be in the new catalog. It was in the holiday catalog and has carried over. I'm also using the layering circles for the label. I used the scallop circle, the third from the largest size, which is about 2.5 inches, and then the white circle, I used the fourth from the largest, which is about 2 1/8 inch diameter for those labels. Also in the dies for the Forever Blossoms, it has some of these flowers, which I did use on some of the cards, but this other flower is in the Dress to Impress, and I stamped those so that they could be colored or stamped behind, and then there are dies that will cut those out of that in that die set. So let's get to making the card. The pieces that you will need, and I just have a few of them examples here. The main base of the cardstock is 8 inches by 5.5 inches. You're going to need a total of 4 of the white Whisper White cardstock that is cut at 1 3/4 by 5 inches. The colored cardstock that coordinates with the Designer Series paper is cut at 1 3/4 by 5, which is the same as the Whisper White. The Designer Series paper I cut at 1.5 by 4 3/8, and you'll need 2 of these, 2 of the colored cardstock that coordinates, and 4 of the white. And you'll see how that's all going to come together. You'll need, like I said, the scallop circle and the regular circle, and then whatever flowers and embellishments that you want, you'll need those as well. Now, I'm trying to get everything off. The mechanism that makes everything work is done with this base. So I was going to go over that really quickly with you. I've already done it on this piece so that it makes it go a little bit faster. And so in landscape, on the scoreboard, you will score this at 2 inches and 6 inches, and then you will flip it over, keeping it in landscape, and score in the 4 inches. The reason that for that is, as I've been taught and learned, where this is indented, it's meant to fold out because you've already kind of broken down the fibers, and it helps it to not crack and break where those bends are. And since we're going to be doing a mountain valley and a mountain fold, then we would need this one to be on the back side. The rest of the score lines we're actually going to be doing with a stylus, and I used my Stampin' Pierce mat underneath. You want to be able to get the score line in, but you don't want to go down too far so that you tear or rip the paper. You'll also need a ruler and a pencil to be able to mark these, to know where to do. So what you're going to do is you're going to mark on the 2-inch score line and the 6-inch score line down from the top at 2 inches and up from the bottom at 2 inches. And you'll do that on both of those. And looks like I got something there. Then what you're going to do is take your ruler, and from the outer corner you're going to score a diagonal line from that corner to this mark, and you're going to do that on all 4 of the outside corners. Then the inside, you're going to go from the top of the 4-inch score line and the bottom of the 4-inch score line to those marks on both sides. And that's what creates the mechanism for this to be able to fold. Once you are completed with that, you can erase your marks so that they won't be shown. It's always good to have a good eraser. So now it comes to the folding. Like I said, you're going to have a mountain, a valley, and a mountain, and that's primarily for those center parts. These other ones, it didn't really matter which way we would have scored them, as far as the top and the bottom in here, because we're going to end up folding them backwards. But these, since they're going to be folding in, you need it on the side where the 2 and the 4-inch score lines are going to be indented, so they will fold correctly. So basically you will take and fold along those score lines that you have created, and you will push those middle parts in, and that is one side. And then you'll repeat that and do that again on this other side. And then once you get them together, you'll want to make sure that there's not too much that's going to be overlapping. You might have to do a little bit of finagling with your fold lines to get them to kind of go back out. And of course I forgot to grab my bone folder. Let me grab that real quick. Oops. And you'll want to make sure that you burnish all of your edges and score lines. This one might have to finesse it just a little bit. I think I needed to score just a little bit on the other side of it, so it will fold a little better. You do want them to line up a little better. So that it won't quite fold in as much. And it'll come together a little better. And this is pretty much the hardest. There is a lot of folding and scoring and measuring, but this is the basic mechanism. And these are intended to be where you can stand them up and display them. So when they're folded, they fit inside the envelope, but they're designed so that you will actually be able to display it standing up with that center part. There it goes. With the center part kind of sticking out on the back side. So that is basically the mechanism that we have created here. Now we're going to do the cutting for creating the layers that go in here. And those are the ones that we will do with these pieces of designer series paper and cardstock. And I've already prepared some of the pieces ahead of time so that I could be a little bit ahead. So what you're going to do is, again, with your ruler and a pencil, the 1 3/4 inch pieces, you are going to measure down one side of the cardstock, and you're going to want it on the edge 1 3/4, so it matches the same as the width. So 1 3/4 inch from the top and from the bottom. 1 3/4. And I did the same thing with this one. Now this one is 1 1/2 inches wide, so you're going to come down 1 1/2 inches and then again 1 1/2 here, which I have already marked and done. Then I just brought in my trimmer. And what you're going to do is you're going to line up with your cutting track where your mark is on the side, along with the opposite corner that is closest to that, and you're going to cut a diagonal. And you'll do that on both ends. I don't know how Sam Calcott was able to come up with this idea, but she was very smart and talented to be able to figure it out. It's kind of like an origami piece, but I can see this being used for a birthday where we have, you know, some balloons or something for Christmas or any other type of event or holiday, babies, and anywhere that someone might display a card that they receive. And I just can see that happening. So once you have cut all of these pieces, you'll probably want to go through and erase your little marks just so that they won't be seen. I'm going to move my trimmer out of the way. And so I'm going to do that really quickly here. And don't throw any of the pieces away. They, most of them you're going to be using for this card. Okay, Now you're going to want to adhere the designer series paper layer onto your coordinating color cardstock. I just did this with regular adhesive. You can use whatever, multi-purpose glue. I just would encourage you getting the adhesive all the way to the corners, or else they tend to kind of flip up. So these layer where there's a little bit of a border around each piece, and you'll do that with the corners. Some people, depending on which kind of designer series paper that you use, you might want to alternate and use the back side for these corner pieces. I just happen to like the way that the flowers looked, so I'm using that. And then in the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and show you. So these are what you will end up with is all these pieces like this. I'm going to move that out of the way and bring in another one that I was working on to show you. Then you attach your pieces to your base. Now I used 4 of the white corners from the white pieces to put down here because I felt that it gave it a little bit of a contrasting look. So you have the designer series paper up here and then the white down there. And then the 4 large white parts or pieces you'll actually put on the back side. This is where you could stamp a message or sentiment, or you can write your message for someone. And basically once you get here, this is when you will put it together. So you will use tear and tape for this inside area, and I just kind of put it around the edges to make sure that this would stick together. Sometimes I have a bit of an issue being able to pull that up, so I kind of burnish the top with my bone folder to make sure that all the glue is sticking down. And then I take the piercing attachment in order to help me grab the ends of this to pull it up, because you just want to pull off the top paper layer and leave the glue. Of course, that one's going to give me fits right now. Try the other end. There. And I've been preparing cards for Mother's Day for our class, but these can be made for friends, they can just be made for thinking of you, or like we said, any other holiday or event. And then you'll basically put these together, and then you just fold it in half at that 4-inch score line, just to make sure that you get everything stuck together. And then that creates this part. Once you get here, this is where I took my other parts and pieces and brought them in. Now, I love the little background smooshes and whatever you want to call them, little things that is in the Best Dressed suite. So on the sentiment part, I took this swoosh there, and I'm going to use Petal Pink ink to just create a background where I'm going to stamp my sentiment over. And it just creates a little watermark type watercoloring area. And then with the Memento Tuxedo Black, I am stamping Happy Mother's Day. This is also from that Best Dressed stamp set. And I loved that font. It was just kind of fun. And then I wanted to give it a little bit of pizzazz. So I am going to take the dots that are a part of that, and I'm going to actually stamp that in Lovely Lipstick, which is a retiring color, and the Daffodil Delight. My brain was not working right there. And I'm just kind of stamping those around. And I will wipe that off on the stamp chamois. Go get another color. Just to kind of create a cute, fun little background. And the flowers that I'm going to use on this one, I did take out of that Forever Blossoms stamp set. But I just adhered these label pieces together. And then you can choose to how you want to attach any of the background pieces. I like using love glue dots. The white glue I tend to get everywhere. So kind of lay out how you want these pieces to. And I like having them where they're kind of sticking out a little and free-flowing. And even when I could only get a portion of the die on a scrap piece of cardstock, I went ahead and took the pieces that were left over there and cut out another section of the branch. And then, because there's already so much depth created with the fold of this, I just thought it would be best to adhere this to the front just without any dimensionals. You could choose to put dimensionals, especially if you're not going to be mailing it and you're just going to hand it to someone. You could probably do that way. I'm going to use a little bit stronger adhesive because there is some movement in that area, and I just want to make sure that it doesn't come off. Just line that up where I wanted it. And then I'm going to add some flowers with the glue dots to the leaves. just attach some of those around. I'm really missing some of the ladies that can't make it to my stamp classes due to this self-isolation and possible health issues. So that has caused me to need to grow and learn some new things. So I have started a blog and a YouTube channel so that I could reach out to those ladies and share what we are working on in our classes so they don't feel left out. And that just creates a cute little card, and it's great for Mother's Day and other holidays and events like I stated, and I hope that you enjoy it. Please subscribe to my channel and check out my blog. I would love to hear any of the wonderful comments that you could share, ideas that you may have. So I thank you for coming and watching my video.